That's my favorite holiday.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners monthly meeting, which is being conducted on a hybrid basis and being also conducted pursuant to the open meeting law amendments that was passed at the government Maura Healy signed that allows us to do this through June 30th, 2027. And I'm going to start by calling the roll. Reg Foster is here.
Janice Bennett's here.
We're out of practice.
Jeff Engler is here.
Amanda Bertman is here.
And I understand that Jim Flanagan is momentarily going to be here.
Yes.
So we are going to go ahead and get started with our forum for commissioners. We're going to have several guests here tonight from the Cambridge Housing Authority and the Affordable Housing and Services Collective, and also from Peabody Properties, because there's a lot going on with the preservation and redevelopment initiative. And I'm going to turn to the commissioners and say, I think it would behoove us to sort of take them out of order for two reasons.
6:45.
And you have, and hopefully we'll be done by then, but you never know. And we do try to do that. And there are two reasons for doing that. One is that we don't keep them waiting for an hour, obviously, but secondly, everything they have to say about our two projects are very relevant to all the residents, and we'll have resident input after that. So there may be some questions. We haven't scheduled a resident session, but I'm sure questions or comments that we get there. But I think that timing is good. And I just want to note for the minutes record that Mr. Flanagan is here, and
Hi, Jen.
all five of our commissioners here tonight. So I think we'll start with seabeds and Cook first. So we're really going to agenda item G. We're going to do agenda item G in its entirety first. Then we'll circle back to the beginning of the agenda and do resident input and the rest of our routine items in that order.
What page is,
What page is what?
what page is, G?
Oh, it's on page, if I've got the right page numbers, it's on the third page, right at the top of the third page here. Says status updates and approvals, preservation and redevelopment initiative, okay? All right, so Cheryl, we need to bring our guests into the meeting. And starting with, I think we have with us here, Chris Abney, our project manager. I can see him, and maybe Margaret Moran there, or not?
Margaret's here. Kristen, could you please send Margaret the link?
Yes.
So while we're waiting for Margaret, I'll just sort of go do an overview of the agenda we're doing. She is there, great, okay. I'm still gonna do an overview of the overall agenda here, because now that we're all back from the summer, there's a lot going on here. So we'll be talking about first, how's the Seabeds Way project is going, and there are some major developments, you know, of the good kind, and a setback or two of the not so good time. And we'll probably then go get a Linden Terrace redevelopment project update. And then we will have the context to talk about the third G3 Community Preservation Committee preliminary application for 2025-26 funding cycles. And that's again related to the Seabeds project, and Margaret and Chris will cover some of tee that up in some part, and then we will need to talk about that in terms of maybe putting an application in between now and November 1st, which is the deadline. And I think that will get us all caught up. There are some approvals along the way. We'll get to that. So Margaret, if you could perhaps take the floor. If you're starting for us here. Jeez.
Margaret, I am so.
Margaret, is Cheryl still trying to get you in
I
here?
think that's it, Margaret. Oh, I did last time. It's so really nice. There's another sign. He's got a nice hairdo, use his moves. Oh, good.
And you can bring her in as a panelist, I think. There she is, okay.
Hey, Margaret.
Margaret, can we say something so we see?
Can you guys hear me? Because I can't hear you.
I hear you.
We can hear
I've got
you.
no voice from you guys, though. I'm now at least reading the live caption.
Margaret, are you there? Let's see.
I think Christian's on his way to my office, so I think we have a solution that in play.
Okay. Great.
Sorry for the technical difficulties on our end.
Weird.
And she can't hear you apologizing yet, so.
Seriously, Margaret.
Maybe she's reading the AI transcript here.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
All right.
Now
We
I
got-
can hear you. You were
Alright.
a nice looking group of people that were very quiet.
Yeah. Well, we're so impressed that you're attending our meeting that we were just overwhelmed with silence here. Margaret Moran is the deputy or assistant, the deputy executive director for development of the Cambridge Housing Authority. And has those of you who don't know, not only was she instrumental in getting us kicked off in mid-2021, but she also did our most recent, not so recent affordable housing project, which is the High Rock Homes project in, I think, 2005 and 2008, when she was just a young thing back then. And now here she is back for some more helping us out here. Margaret, go ahead, take it from here. How are we doing on this way?
So, I mean, from my vantage point, the collaboration between the Cambridge and Needham Housing Authority continues to be very strong. We continue to make, excuse me, really nice strides in a lot of different areas related to the CPED's repositioning. One of the biggest factors I think we're facing, and we're not unique in it, is kind of the impact that the shutdown in Washington, DC has. We have a number of different touch points with HUD that we need to have occur that can't occur as long as the shutdown continues, and that includes, a concept call with them on the RAD conversion, submitting our financing plan, submitting a request to hold units vacant at CBEDS to help facilitate the upcoming modernization. But we are continue to strive to make progress and continue to kind of submit requests when we can, so that when HUD opens, and I trust it will, and I'm hopeful that they have a staff when they do open, we will be in line to have them service the various different tasks that we need. I think the challenge we're facing nationally, and certainly in folks who are doing this work in housing, is that as there continues to be a reduction of the federal employee workforce, I think it really creates pinch points and bottlenecks to actually move projects forward. And to date, to their credit, we have not seen that on some of the other transactions, prior to the closing shutdown of the government. Prior to that, we were still seeing HUD being able to turn things around and move forward on various different closing related tasks related to repositioning. So I would hope when they do open up that we would continue to see that performance, but again, there's some level of uncertainty there. So that's where we are with the HUD piece of it, but it's still important to continue to position the project and the Needham Housing Authority work as best we can, so that when HUD does open, that, you know, we're, if not first in line, very, very close to it. So design work continues to progress. The A&E firm recently, in the last few days, submitted their 25% construction documents for review. And we are in the process, so actually just got the cost estimate on that submission, which we're currently under review. And we're a little, to be honest, perplexed by the cost estimate, because it's higher than what our budget has been set for. And sometimes, you know, you do get, as you get more detailed on the drawings, you know, you get more increased cost. But I think what is surprising about this particular cost estimate was that the scope really hasn't changed, so the details got filled in, but the scope is the same. And one of the instructions we had given was to price it assuming that the project will benefit from some procurement relief that's available to housing authority projects. And so we had thought that we would either stay the same or see really a decrease in pricing, and it actually has turned out to be about $2 million higher. So we're just grappling with that and trying to understand where it's differing from the earlier estimates that we've gotten, whether there's just an issue with kind of the underlying logic being used to put the estimate together, or whether or not we'll have to go through an exercise of doing some value engineering in terms of getting the scope in the selection aligned with the funding that is available to the project. We have continuing to wait on funding to hear back from some of the applications that are outstanding. I know there's the List Climate Ready application that is due to be publicized at some point this fall. We have received some indications that the news will be good for the Needham Housing Authority project, but until we get any kind of notice or award, it would be premature to count on that. We also heard that, as well as which was the other one? The LISC fund, but financing. One thing, or the DOE funding is the second one. We did get some less than good news with our application for community one-stop funding. The request was for $1.1 million, and the state did not award funding for that. So that, in addition to having the challenge of the cost estimate, we have the challenge of the $1.1 million gap from not getting that funding. We had already started working with Reg and the CPA committee to look to backstop and seek some additional CPA funds to cover that cost, as well as costs related to replacing the roof. So, you know, really the near-term work is really going to be grappling with both the results of the cost estimate and understanding whether or not we do have a problem and what our avenues are to address that, and then working with backstopping the funding and working with getting the CPA application in later this month. We're hoping, I mean, one of the things that is happening right now is we're seeing some reduction in interest rates. So we're hoping that if interest rates continue to trend down, which I think is what the forecast is, that we'll be able to make up some of the gap from not getting the community one-stop funding with some better financing terms from the various different lenders involved in the project. We are anticipating starting relocation planning later this year to get ready for where the construction is. That also is tied into what I had mentioned earlier, which is the getting HUD's approval to hold units. And I don't know what else, Reg, if you want to go through any town approvals as it relates to the documents or zoning or permitting issues, but I can stop there and take any questions or. go deeper into any topic anyone would like.
I'll just add those two items, which is, we're seeking a new pilot agreement similar to what we did for Linden's Terrace with the town. We've been working all summer and into September to, craft a first draft of that, which is pretty much done. Have it reviewed by our local council, who is, ready to go on that. And then also a second agreement, which is a CPA funding agreement for the grant, $3.2 million grant that was awarded last spring town meeting. And be opening up discussions with the town on that probably next week, certainly before the end of October. But the way for both of those agreements have been pretty much paved by the Linden Terrace redevelopment team last fall, and leading up to our our submission of our one-stop funding application in February. So a lot of the kind of basic terms and conditions should be pretty much the same. We also have a kickoff meeting with the building commissioner next week. Just an informal meeting saying, here's our 25% CDs. Have you seen any issues there? Is there something we should pay attention to, and so forth and so on. So that's good to get going on, obviously, work in partnership with the town. And then as Margaret already alluded, funding is the usual roller coaster. I think I would say, as I have been learning from Margaret, which is, this is not unusual for funding sources to fall out and drop back in, or sometimes you get a great funding source and then it expires before you can use it, and all manner of permutations in between. So this shouldn't be taken as a setback. It's just the normal toing and froing happens. And some things are trending in the right direction, some things are trending in the wrong direction. My experience with big construction projects doesn't approach Margaret's multi-billion-dollar experience here, but I know Jeff has the same sort of experience. It's not unusual that the construction numbers always seem to go one direction. It's kind of the law of the universe, and there could be many reasons for that. And just sort of, we're about to have a 2-week internal review of the cost numbers, and we'll see if maybe there's some mistakes, assumptions were wrong, or what's going on, and then go from there. And then Margaret, I don't think you said that, but the team expects coming out of that review period, and certainly it's already starting informally with our BH&A team. They're starting to move towards 75% CDs, which is our next milestone. And that's expected, I think it's, what is it, Christian, by the end of the year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so,
Reg, can I ask a question?
yeah, so go ahead, questions from the
Okay,
commissioners.
so the $2 million overrun or the higher estimate, that cost estimate is being provided by an estimator or actual general contractors?
By an estimator.
Okay, has it been discussed actually giving the 25% plans to potential GCs to bid it? I'm not familiar with using a cost estimator, but I'm certainly familiar with using general contractors.
We've done both. And we do have Colantonio, who's been advising, they're a general contractor. They've been advising on phasing and construction schedule related matters. We have in the past used them and other contractors to price out the project as well. And that is something I think once we kind of go through, if we have questions remaining or issues remaining with the independent cost estimator, to then potentially incur the added cost of asking the contractor to price out the project. That can be somewhere between 12 and between $10,000 and $15,000 of cost to get a contractor to price out a project.
Can I add to that comment there, Margaret, if you're done? Also, I learned, that I did something I didn't know. It's not unusual. In fact, it's best practice to have your general contractor on board at this stage of any big project. But because of the restrictions and permutations of chapter 149A that we have to go forward with. We're not allowed to actually, get a general contractor until next February-ish period. And, don't ask me to explain why, Margaret can probably do that. But so what we did do is hire a general contractor consultant that, Cambridge has worked with before to kind of give us the kind of ongoing constructability advice. We have to come up with lay down areas, we have to do phasing, and so all kinds of general contractor things. So we're getting that kind of input, but not in the normal way of doing it.
Okay, I'm showing some of my inexperience with public finance, but let me just talk about how we handle it in our business. So in this situation, we would have a 25% set. We would go out to 2 or 3 general contractors who we know are interested in the work. We would not pay them to do a bid because we would say, hey, you're bidding this because you might get the work. And then we would go through that and see where the numbers come out. Is somebody super high, is somebody super low? Are they all kind of within the same bandwidth? We would then begin to whittle that down. We would commit to somebody at least tentatively and say, hey, listen, will you help us with a pre-development process of which we will, pay you if we do not hire you. Now, if you end up hiring them, they throw that into the deal. Because I'm not sure, I'm not clear on how you do a value engineering exercise with somebody that's not bidding the project, because they're the ones that have the relationships with subcontractors, with the electricians, with the plumbers, with the HVAC guys that will look at the plans and say, this is what you've drawn, but we can take $200,000 if we do this, and so on and so forth. That's typically the exercise that we go through. On our end, we just did this on a project we're bidding in Walpole and took $3 million out of the project through that process. Moreover, when the general contractor buys the project, there's the opportunity for buyout savings that will also reduce the project. So I don't know if we can do some of those things, but if we're looking to,
Great,
Margaret's shaking her head, but
great question.
I wish I had your world, Commissioner.
Margaret, can you handle the answer to that question? Because
Yeah,
it's
so
question.
as a public entity, you have to bid under chapter 149 or 149A, which is what Chairman mentioned. And
Foster.
Foster, thank you. I was gonna call you Reg, and I was thinking that's too unfair.
Red is fine.
And you have to do it in a public way, where you have to take the lowest bid. There's not a negotiation that can occur. But one of the things that we've been trying to take advantage of is in the 2022 Housing Development Act, there was a provision that passed that allowed housing authorities that are repositioning portfolios to take advantage of not having to follow 149 rules. And one of the biggest factors of 149 is the fact that you have to do a multi-tiered bidding process, and that every time you do another tier of bidding, you end up with added costs. And so in public procurement in Massachusetts, absent any kind of procurement relief, you have to bid certain trade categories like the electrical, the heating, the roofing, windows. There's like 17 different categories of work. And the general contractor has to take the low bid or if they want the job. And so you're forcing marriages on people who don't necessarily work well together or work in harmony. And there's always a risk component that is included in the price that adds to the cost. But in the 2022 Economic Development Bill, the legislature provided some relief. But for that relief to actually occur, the property needs to be transferred from the housing authority's ownership to it can be a limited liability corporation, or it can be with a private developer, which is what you did in the case of Linden. But because this is CBEDS is a federal public housing development, the state came up with a way to handle a Linden project but the federal government has been slow to come up with a process to handle the interim disposition of a federal public housing development to take advantage of the procurement relief. But we've been working with council to put together a plan that actually we've talked to the HUD Special Application Center about their willingness to accept that plan that would allow for us to make that transfer that then would open up a better, and we hope what I fully expect to be a less expensive procurement process for Needham, and we're kind of in between that. If we were to go out to bid right now, we would have to go out and follow strictly the 149A bidding requirements, and you'd have to bid in accordance with the filed subbids, which we know would add a premium cost to the project.
30%.
Yeah, easily 30%. And so, we're kind of in this catch-22 a little bit where, and this is a lot of my work had never had the advantage of having a contractor come on board as early as Commissioner Engler had mentioned up until the last few years when we've taken advantage of that. And there really is value in having the contractor at the table with value engineering. But most of my career has been working with the architect and the independent cost estimator and my skilled construction team to value engineer, in hopes that we value engineer to a place where we have a bid result that fits within the budget that we have for a project. But my hope is that if we can get HUD back to work and finish the conversations that have started with the Special Application Center, that then once we understand what they're willing to sign off on, that it would open up the door to perhaps bringing the contractor on using not the 149A process that otherwise we would have to be able to use.
Margaret, could you just briefly mention what you referred to with a couple more sentences, your experienced team, because you've been living with this problem for years.
Yeah. And we have a good hand, and we have been doing, we've been doing work comparable to what's being proposed at Seabeds across our portfolio over the last 15 years. And we have a database ourselves about what different heating systems, different kitchens and bathrooms cost. But my team has, is headed by Goran Smeljic, who is very skilled, had served as the building commissioner for the city of Somerville for a number of years before coming to the CHA in 2018 now. So he's been with us for 7 years. He's overseen probably $500 million worth of construction for us in that period of time. And he, not only knows code and can interpret code, he's very skilled at, working with the contractors and with our architectural team, and maintains our database around, what all these different component pieces have been costing us project by project. So if I want to find out, what our average cost for heating and ventilation improvements has been at sites similar to Seabeds, Goran is able to, look at actual price information that we have from the contractors that will give us that price. And again, really tried and true professionals who've been doing this work. Goran oversees a team about 10 folks who've really been overseeing construction for us for a number of years, who really possess, I think, a good handle on, effective and efficient ways to manage and supervise construction, and particularly supervise both the architect as well as the contractor themselves.
Margaret, I'm just adding leading questions for our new commissioners who just came on board. Obviously, you presented this before so just how many $1 billion worth of development have you used this hybrid technique on?
Yes. Since 2010, which is really, I always count that as the date we really got started in repositioning and really started leaning into tax credits. We've done tax credits for over 20 years now, but since 2010, we've closed on $1.4 billion of financing, which has funded over $800 million of construction. most of that, $800 million is in Cambridge, but we also have been assisting other housing authorities like Needham, where we have helped, like the Medford Housing Authority on a $150 million transaction that's generated $110 million of construction at a Medford Housing Authority site. That, we put together the financing and have overseen the construction on that. So when I add that, I'm, inching up beyond 1.5, $1.6 billion since 2010, both within the Cambridge Housing Authority portfolio, but also, with some of our partner agencies and collaborations.
So
as
let's go to some other questions and also, Lyndon, but, we are doing the best we can to do exactly what you're recommending here has been my takeaway. And I've worked with these guys. Goran is great. He's, anybody would want him on your project. So, but any other questions, Jeff or Amanda or Jim or Janice?
I have a question,
Good.
and I think that, that you are already aware of the funding, because I think Linden Street went after it, but the West Metro Home Consortium funding
we
pool.
have that on our list as well.
there,
And I know there's another application coming up for that, and so that would be something that we would also look to go through. I know that I think we already we're waiting for formal notification of a $182,000 award, but Matt had mentioned to me that we would be working on submitting another application in the coming future.
And Matt had a conflict tonight, otherwise would have been here, but Matt would have also said that in our most recent bill, especially when the $1.1 million one-stop grant dropped out, we went over 4 or 5 different ways that we're gonna make up the funding, one of which was the home fund, funding round that's coming up,
okay,
which played a lot about, so yes. And there are 2 or 3.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I mean, as Reg said, sometimes funds come in, you get a surprise and you get funding you didn't expect, or you get a surprise and you didn't get something, but the idea is to cast your net as wide as you can and to be willing to and able to pivot as you need to, go after whatever funding sources are available, both at the state and local level, and then to really make sure that, one of the things we've been working on is an updated rent study to support higher rents at seabeds, which then coupled with the adjusting or lowering interest rates will, increase the project's borrowing power without impacting the Needham Housing Authority's ability to properly maintain the property going forward.
Great. Jim, any questions or comments? Janice, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I did raise my hand, Reg. I hate to use the word, but it's tariff.
Oh, yeah.
And that is a big word that is now going to affect a lot of what we want to do up at seabeds. For instance, kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, all of that. So how is that going to dwindle down the quality of the cabinetry, if you will, that we need to last like another 40 years? Will we be dumbed down, dwindled down?
Well, I mean, the concerns about tariff are true. We've bid out a project this summer. And the 2 things that we were kind of confronted or challenges on the bidding side was both the impact on tariffs, but then there is also a provision of Build and Buy America, which is also a real challenge because there's not as much manufacturing. Like toilets are generally made in Mexico, for instance, and so the Build America provisions say that you'll source the material from America, and that can be a real challenge in terms of finding the manufacturers who are making that, and then the premium costs associated. So in some ways, it's been a little bit of a double whammy. On the tariff side, it feels like it's in, it's out, it's in, it's out. And it's really hard to know, but a lot of the items that are most impacted by tariff have been kind of items of steel, windows, things like that. And, you know, we have included like a provision to cover that cost, but on our bidding most recently, and it hasn't been as impactful as I thought it was going to be, but which is surprising to me. The one that had a little bit more potential impact was the Build America, Buy America provisions, and even then, when we were bidding a particular project, the only component that we had trouble sourcing in the US were windows, and there was like a premium to switch from windows, and it was a much larger project, so the premium was $500,000. But that's one of the things that we really want to investigate with the cost estimate that we got is, you know, what assumptions are they making on the tariffs? Are they reasonable assumptions, you know, in Build and Buy America? Are they reasonable assumptions? Is that the reason why that the cost is creeping up, or are there other things, or as Reg mentioned, are there other kind of potentially faulty logics, or, you know, something they saw that they shouldn't have priced, or they priced double? You know, their mistakes get made, and I think we just need to spend, you know, some time really doing a deep dive into the numbers. And again, I've got Goran, who is really, this is his, I mean, he will be through that in the next week, and have a lot of opinions and questions and suggestions on what he's seeing that may be a factor in that. And that's when we'll know, you know, I think, what the full impact of the tariffs and or the Buy America, Build America provisions are to the project. But my hope in terms of the quality, that, you know, it's a price thing, not a quality thing. I mean, I think it gets, you're alluding, if we have to value engineer out quality kitchen cabinets, you know, I think we're kind of very strategic about what we value engineer out, knowing that things need to last for a good period of time, and we would try to be looking at the least impactful for the long-term financial stability and quality of life issues that the residents need and
So
expect.
stay tuned for regular board updates, and let me ask Jazz, did you have anything else you wanted to bring up? I think you're on mute, or the answer is no. Okay, great. Let's bring in Betsy and Mike from AHSC. That's Mike Mattis, President, and Betsy Collins, VP of Development at Peabody Properties. For just an update on where things are with the Linden Street project, starting with getting turned down as we expected from the winter 2025 round, and what do we see over the next year here, and in particular, also segueing to, I'll just let everybody know that we still have $300,000 plus or minus of ARPA funds. These were the ones, the grant that we received in 2021 with the great work of Denise Garlick that we've been using to do the Linden Street project pre-development. A very unusual thing for a small town to have been able to do in finance here. So Betsy or Mike, whichever of you is taking forward from here, you've got the floor.
Sure. Thank you, Reg. I'm Betsy Collins, and I'm one of the development partners. I partner with Mike Mattos's firm, Affordable Housing and Services Collaborative, for the new commissioners. Nice to meet you all. We were selected a year ago, a little over a year ago, last September, as development partners, our joint venture, and have had the fun and privilege of working with Cheryl and Reg and some of the other commissioners that were involved when we were going through. We jumped into the middle of permitting and approval processes, and as Reg just alluded, we did submit what's called the One Stop, which is a one-stop financing application that went to EOHLC. The pre-app went in November, and we all worked very hard to get permitting approvals and CPA grant commitments and other documents that were really criteria to get into the application round. And then we were fortunate to be selected to submit a full application in February. I think Reg alluded to, you know, there are many, many projects that are in the queue with the state, and we cautioned and said that it's more of a marathon than a sprint, and sometimes you run that marathon a few times. So we expected and were told that we met criteria of readiness to proceed on some fronts, but one of the key things that we have to have is, if you all will remember, Linden is a two-phase project. It is replacing roughly half of the units, or 40 of the existing units in phase 1A. And the second half, which we're treating really as a separate project, it will be funded separately, it will be constructed separately, is replacing the remaining 36 units. So we have to have a permanent rental assistance source for the existing 40 units. The current state resources that are subsidizing the operations of Linden Terrace will go away. We will be doing what's called as federalization, or federalizing, funny word, the community. But we have to have 40 units of subsidies so that all the existing residents and future residents, not just the existing residents, but this future 40 units will still have a subsidy to keep them deeply affordable. The mechanism for that is really tied directly to seabeds. Seabeds, when it closes on its financing and has its approval to start construction, will create a subsidy that will give us 41 units of project-based subsidy that will allow us then to make sure that 40 of phase 1A will be available, not only to keep the same rent levels for the current residents, but again, as I say, going forward. So it's called a project-based subsidy. Will give us a contract that is a 15-year term, and we will ask for renewals, and there's some discussions about the periods of renewals and all of that. But for the project to really be feasible and meet the criteria that we're going to continue to replace the existing housing at the same affordability levels, it's very important that we have that commitment. So we're kind of, you know, waiting in the wings and trying to be supportive any way we can, but most importantly, not competing with the seabed project because it needs to get to a closing. And once it gets to the closing, it doesn't have to complete construction. It just needs to close on its financing, have the HUD approvals in place, and enable it to start construction. So our project right now is not really 100% ready to go, and that's a criteria for the state. We've got a lot of feedback from the state. They're very aware of the project. We've met with Secretary Augustus directly. We've tried a couple different strategies to find another source for those subsidies. So it's a highly visible project, and it will continue to be, but it's more likely than not, unless we are advised, yeah, please submit it again. We probably won't review it as intensely. We will not be going into the winter round. So a pre-app in sometime, probably more likely now late November, December, and a late February application, just because we won't really have the subsidies if you're looking at seabeds being ready to go next summer. But then we will have those subsidies. We will be competitive, and we would expect that the project would be favorably received, and we could get our funding.
Let me pause there for questions from the commissioner, if that's
Sure.
okay, Betsy. And
I'll just talk until you let me to, Ms. Reg, so that's.
That's okay. I would say, I just want to say again, just historically, this is not a surprise that we're in this position at all. You know, since the first year we started working with Cambridge Housing Authority, mid-2021, it was clear that we had this interdependency between getting the federal repositioning started and into construction. Briefly, we thought that we wouldn't have to get a project into construction, but that went away. And so, you know, again, it's always been sort of the long-term plan to tee them up in this order. And any questions? I'm just going to go down the table looking at you, Jeff, again. Comments?
I don't have any, Rick.
Amanda? Jim,
Just want to build off the timeline, just so folks
Yeah.
can kind of level set.
go ahead.
So I'm hearing the pre-app in November or December of next year, 2026. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, yep.
And you want to take me forward in the February to the point of when we might ideally
Sure.
have shovels.
Well, so here's the funny part. You would love to think that we know they usually have these funding rounds at the same time of year. When they announce the awards is not defined. They don't have a date. It is somewhat subject to political pressures or good and bad. But for example, the funding round that was submitted in February, announced in late July. Or excuse me, they awarded in July. So you can assume that it would be summer of 28. Sounds no 20, excuse me. Now I gotta do my math. 27, excuse me, 27. It then takes we're finishing the third phase of a project in Foxborough, and that project got awarding in this past round. It's been queued up for a long time. We're now trying to get to a closing table for spring of this coming year. So even, you're looking at a start of construction sometime in the spring of 28.
Thank you. And it's all subject to a lot of different variables, but thanks for those.
And I will just say to that anything we say today may be different at the next monthly meeting.
Sure.
Yeah, one way or the other.
Yeah.
And welcome to the world of trying to get affordable housing development done here. Janice, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I don't, Reg.
All right, great. And so let me come back, Betsy, to our, we've been doing a lot of auditing and making sure we've gotten everything covered. Cheryl and I have had a year-long project or more to make sure that we have reconciled all our available funding sources with all of our costs. We're almost to the finish line there. And it has emerged that there's about $300,000 plus or minus. We got one more round of auditing and checking that we need to do of funds from the ARPA grant that expire. Basically, they need to be obligated and spent by June 30th, 2026, like 7 or 8 months from now, in other words. And it's against the laws of nature and religious principles of doing development to leave money there. And so we asked Betsy and Mike to look at our options for what we could productively use that money for. And Betsy, why don't you or Mike take it from here?
Sure. So what we want to do is spend it on something that we will need to have and not have it expire, not have it, become obsolete. So we are currently at it's aggressive to say there are 70% level of construction documents, but that was one of the goals we had when we submitted our application last year. So the best use that we feel is not going to become obsolete. There are no changes in the building code on the horizon, the stretch code and all the other things we've already factored into our construction scope, is to advance the drawings further and have them really ready to go to bid. We have a slightly different schedule, I think, as Margaret explained. It's very complicated when you're doing work with housing authorities and whether or not you're redeveloping existing, building new construction. But the procurement when we were procured, we also procured a general contractor as part of our submission. So if we advance the drawings to as high as we can, it won't be 100% because all of that usually happens when you go to contract documents. But the thought might be to get them to a 90% level that would be prepared to go out to bid to the subcontractors and be prepared to go and try to go to closing. So when we are closer to going to a construction closing, we would take those documents and go out to bid. We won't, the use of the funds would be costs we'd have to incur. And we think it's the best use to not spend money on something that might become obsolete. So we're talking to BH+A, the contract architect, and a civil engineer next week to talk to them about, advancing the drawings, trying to incorporate comments that we did get from HLC on the submission, and really getting the documents that much further developed. I think there are other, it's probably the most definitive way to spend money that we'll have to spend, and it's an allowed use under the ARPA.
And to actually give a notice of proceed to BHNA, and they reassemble their team and do another, major chunk of work to get to 100% is a board decision. And so I'll be, after we do our questions and comments, I'm going to be, if the consensus is that that's a good idea, then I'll be asking for a formal vote on that. Jeff, any questions or comments?
Not at this time.
Amanda?
I think I know the answer to this, but, if we don't use that 300,000 for this purpose, where does the 300,000 go?
Out the window.
We lose it, yeah.
Yeah,
Right, back to the federal government, correct?
yes,
maybe.
yeah, 100%.
Use it or lose it, yeah.
It's lost money, and the time frame is fixed by, when they make the award, they have a window where those funds have to be spent by, and that windows will close in the end of the state fiscal year.
Yep.
And it's an expense we'd have to incur anywhere as well, so.
Right.
Yep.
And it will help expedite things when we get to the point where we're ready to go to bid. We'll already have that set ready.
And again, to elaborate on Jeff's comment, this is not what you would do in the private sector, but that's it. This is the best we can do. Jim, anything?
No.
Janice, any questions or comments?
No,
Mike, I saw you flash on there. Do you want to add anything, Mike Mattis, president of AHSC?
Oh, no, I was just kind of reiterating the point that, that this is really helpful because it will help expedite the plan set. So that way, when we are prepared and ready to go to bid, we'll be ready. We won't have to, get that going at that time. So that's all.
It's Mike's team and company that's basically overseeing and shepherding, the process of taking the project forward into construction and through to the other end here. So it's important that he feels this is the right thing to do. I will also just want to comment before we ask for the vote, that we still have the $5.5 million that the town meeting generously allocated or voted to appropriate for this construction of this project that is, quote unquote evergreen. So it doesn't expire in the sense of what we're talking about now. And that's was weighing in about 9 or 10% of the overall financing. So that's very, very significant support from the town that we should always remember to say thank you when we get an opportunity to have meeting members and all the other boards and committees that made that happen. And it in the grant agreement, just a heads up, they do have a sunset clause of 2 years from the grant. So but we can go to them 90 days ahead of time to CPC and say, okay, here's where we are, and this would be in 2026, going into hopefully a pre-application there. Please extend it another 22 years. So that's on the calendar as a tickler about a year from now here. We'll be talking about that in a year. Are we ready to go? I'm going to make a motion that we authorize our development partners, Peabody, AHSC, to notify BHNA of our intention to restart the design process and to basically go from 70% to 100% CDs, and then we'll probably put everything on pause, barring some big new change that we not expecting. And do I have a second on that? Second from Amanda. Any further comment from any of the commissioners? I'm going to make one more comment, Mike, and this is not rehearsed with Mike and Betsy, but this is my understanding there. So, which is a question I might have expected to get is, what happens if it costs $500,000 to get to 100% CDs and we only have $300,000 left? What happens there, Mike or Betsy?
Well, the only thing I would say is that, as you know, Reg, we affordable fronted a $600,000 pre-development loan to the project to help kind of keep things rolling. So we could tap into those sources if we needed to keep things moving.
Okay, and so, yeah, again, just go
I
ahead.
ask an uninformed question, why would that change by $200,000, isn't it?
I'm not,
No. I assume
yeah.
that was a hypothetical.
Hypothetical. No, it's just a hypothetical. You know, we do have a fixed contract, but it doesn't allow, it doesn't have any allowance for stopping and starting and stopping and starting. So what happens is when you go back to the BH&A team is unfortunately you open the door to say, okay, well, we're gonna get, you know, we can't get everybody back and, you know, it's gonna take extra work to spin up the team and therefore it's gonna cost more. So I thought I'd ask, that hasn't happened yet, but that's not untypical when you change, you know, the scope of a fixed price contract. And so I thought I'd ask that leading question. And so that we could have Mike's answer. And I just wanted to remind everybody, again, we've got new 2.5 new commissioners, or 3 if you count Jim, that one of the wonderful things that HSC and Peabody did to handle a cash flow challenge that we had in paying timely invoices to BH&A, which was very unfortunate because it is embarrassing for the housing authority to be in that position, but we just don't have a lot of free working capital to deploy for them. It is this revolving credit agreement that we have with AHSC, which is still in place. It's not with the Needham Housing Authority, it's with the, I'm reminding again, we have the NHA Development Corporation. It's our fully owned nonprofit that's controlled by this board. And so if it makes sense to our development partner, it's an administrative thing for the NHA board to approve, NDC board to approve the request and for Mike to, you know, accept that request to be able to fund the money to be able to finish any scope that might come up from the decision we're making tonight here. Mike or Betsy, did I miss anything?
No, I would just say, right. I mean, the whole point of that advance was just to kind of be able to process invoices because the turnaround time to get the reimbursements on some of the funds that you had already had committed was, you know, a little delayed. And so some of the vendors were, you know, were doing a lot of work for us and they were concerned with the timeliness of their payments. But having said that, it's a pre-development source really, so we can use it as a pre-development source. And so
and I also thank Mike and HSC that it's a zero interest revolving credit agreement here. So at least it is so far. I don't know if it will stay that way, but you know, if it's got to be out there for the next couple of years, because it was really short-term cash flow kind of thing. So interest wasn't an issue, but we haven't even talked about that yet. But I'm just trying to get everybody all the moving parts that I've been thinking about here, even though Mike hasn't brought it up yet. But I mean, they're such a great company, nice guy, and maybe that will continue that way. I've got a motion and a second. I'm gonna call a roll in our usual seniority pecking order. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Jeff Engler votes aye.
Amanda Berman votes aye.
Okay, great. So that passes 5-0. Okay. Now, back to Matt Zajac and, oh, I'm sorry, Margaret and Christian Abney. I have seen, my eyes have been laid yesterday upon a preliminary application. This isn't ready to share with the board yet. It's not fully baked. Preliminary applications for CPA funding are very simple documents, you know, 100 words or less documents kind of thing that just gets the idea that you're going to be applying for CPA funds in the 25-26 cycle onto the radar screen of the CPC, which next meets in mid November. and it's really solely for the purpose of doing a preliminary determination of eligibility for CPA funding. And in our case, that's quite important, because there is a sort of a complex and somewhat vague and fuzzy set of guidelines from DHCD, now HLC, and the Department of Revenue as to what elements of the CVEDS project are eligible for CPA funding and what elements are not eligible. So it's very important to get that application in and also to get it right. And then in December, the CPC will, in their December meeting, vote formally with the benefit of town council input on accepting the preliminary applications and directing the applicants to go forward by I think it's January 5th, 2026, to submit a much more extensive application, and then we go into the winter process and leading up to Springtown meeting. So no vote on that tonight, but we will have to vote to approve that application before November 1st. So I'm gonna ask maybe that we do a little calendar drill right now, if everybody can whip out their iPhones and see if we can find a time frame. And I would propose that we look at the week of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the 27th of October. And it can be, it'll be a single purpose meeting, unless something comes up and we should, add it in. And you will have the materials you need to sort of review that quickly and vote on authorizing the CPA funding application go in. It's right now, numbers are still very squishy, as you understood from Margaret's presentation, but it appears it'll be in the vicinity of $1 million plus or minus here. And now that we have better sense of what the costs are from this CD document delivery and the cost update. So I would suggest it seems to work before to sort of pick something during the day in mid-morning or mid-afternoon. So are there any mid-morning or mid-afternoons of the 27th, the 28th, or the 29th? I prefer the 27th or 28th. And then we'll get that meeting scheduled and posted.
Mid-morning for me on both of those days would be okay.
And Amanda, how about yourself?
Not really ideal.
We can do minute, at some other time. I'm just,
3 o'clock on Wednesday, the 29th, just to get specific.
yeah, that's good. Jim?
Works for me.
Works for me. Janice, does that work for you?
Wednesday, the 29th at 3?
Yeah.
Yes, that's good.
Okay, so why don't we put that, pencil that into our calendars, and then we'll catch up with a posting and note. And Christian and Margaret and Matt, they check will certainly, I think, get you something well before that here to take a look at. Okay, now we're going to go number 1, number 2, number 3. Make sure I've got everything here. I want to go, I think we're done with our consultants. And so thank you very much. We'll take more resident input and questions during our regular session, which we'll get going just as soon as we get through this here. So thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Matt. I'm sorry, Mike, and thank you, Betsy. We never could pull this off without you guys, and we're so grateful to everybody for your
Yes,
help.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice to
Nice
see you all.
evening. Thank you.
Bye now.
I added Tuesday morning, or I guess it got in Tuesday afternoon, we amended the agenda because a major new development had come up that is tangentially related to us, which is after many months, or some people would say years, of study of the Stephen Palmer apartment building situation, which is a old elementary school that was retired in 1977, and then converted to apartments for senior people. And there are 29 apartments. After many months, 6 or 9 months, the select board kind of out of the blue announced a strategy, because the 50-year ground lease for that apartment building, which was signed in 1977, so nobody was around at all when it was done, expired. And the building, it's a ground lease where the leasehold improvements, which is the original ancient building that's been updated to become apartments, and revert back to the town. It's been on the town's radar screen for, at least 20, 25 years that this is gonna happen, and every time they think about something, the select board at the time, the planning board at the time, just couldn't deal with it. And the future has now arrived, and the lease is up on May 2nd, 2027. And so, Friday morning, people who obsessively watch the town calendar, which isn't me, but I did notice it on Tuesday morning. Lo and behold, there was a board of selectmen agenda amendment for the 14th, 2 days ago, like literally 48 hours ago, where the board unveiled their strategy that they've been working on in executive session for 6 months or a year with 3 consulting firms, which as I understand it, and there's a lot of documents, but what's not known is much more than what is known, but their strategy for requesting $385,000 from town meeting this upcoming Monday, the 20th. There's a placeholder warrant article, but it hadn't any information to run a process to relocate the 28 tenants in the 29 tenants to new apartments elsewhere. Not dissimilar to what we need to do temporarily for Seabed's project or the Linden project, except you don't have a right to return. They're gonna bring this up with town meeting on Monday. And I just checked this afternoon, there's still not any town meeting member materials posted to the town meeting site, but there was quite a robust set of materials that was in the select board packet update for last Tuesday. There was a presentation. There was also comment that was provided by residents of Stephen Palmer at the open comment period at the beginning of every select board meeting. And the board voted 4-1 to go forward with the strategy, which has a ton more detail, but mostly everybody doesn't know what it is yet. And then the Stephen Palmer Development Review Committee, which was formed last spring and then hasn't had its first meeting yet, lo and behold, had their first meeting on Wednesday, like 24 hours ago. And it was the usual first kickoff meeting where everybody meeting themselves with each other for the first time in the committee and talking with each other. The 3 consulting firms that have already been engaged by the town were there and gave presentations. And there's a bunch of Q&A and general discussion of the mission and everything else by the committee. And that committee is now starting up. And they have a charter to do a public engagement process between now and next June or May, let's say next May, that consists of at least 3 public hearings. To be the first of which was scheduled last night, and to listen and to all the different possible uses that this is like having a big 1.5 acre parcel in the middle of Times Square of New York City. I mean, it's our, it could not be more prime real estate and property. And apparently a lot of committees and other interests in town have had their eyes on this coming up. Not just for, and we, we're housing, of course, being housing is a good thing from our point of view, but other committees, and I'm not even gonna try to characterize what that is. But if you wanna go listen to the select board meeting, and presumably there'll be town meeting materials and so forth. The select board video, it went up this afternoon, and you can, I'll send around the link to that and a timestamp of when it was discussed on the meeting. The first meeting of the Palmer Committee it's not been posted yet, but I suspect it will be by tomorrow, and YouTube. And I put it on the agenda because I've already received a few calls, as you might expect, saying, what does the housing authority think about this? And I don't know. And not only do I not know, but I can't speak to what the housing authority thinks of this, even as an individual member who happens to be chairman. The only thing I can speak to is what the Board of Commissioners collectively decide by at least a majority vote, but hopefully a consensus unanimous vote. And what we don't know is, quite a bit more than, vastly more at this point than what we do know. And so I sort of anticipated that was going to happen. I've also heard, and not anecdotally, that it's been a very controversial, this 2 meetings that just took place, given the nature of the circumstances and so forth. And so there's a lot of chatter, and in social media and other venues and so forth. And the select board is, going to be explaining all this to us, over the next few days. And the housing authority has not been a part of this executive session process for the last few months. I've been told nothing about it, and I'm very consciously has had the Chinese wall up from both sides. And I'm in learning mode like everybody else. I've been watching this for years. I have said over the years and the various times it's come up, like the last most recent formal time was when the Housing Working Group Committee was doing their thing a couple, 3 years ago, and producing a report to the town, and addressing the MBTA Communities Act. So I've said, whenever asked, that, we would certainly probably have some interest in this property, given that that's our main mission in Needham. But what that interest is now, today, under the present circumstances, who knows, until we sort of all, it's everybody, it's not just us commissioners. So it's all the town meeting members who are being asked to vote on something on Monday that they haven't seen anything about, at all yet. And that's not usually the way we do business in Needham, as long as I've been here. It's kind of, it's usually the other way around. We need to study and have a lot more open discussion a lot ahead of time, but I don't know why they're doing this, but we'll find out.
Right, just one quick question. What are they being asked to vote on Monday?
So specifically, as I understand it, and again, I listened to the meeting presentation on Tuesday and Wednesday. If the town, I guess the way to say it is 50 years ago, our forebears who entered that agreement wouldn't, had they received the right advice and thought about it, said, oh, and your ground lease is up, 50 years later, and you must deliver the tenant. If they wanted this, they would say you have to deliver the building at your own expense, free and clear of any tenants. But there's no such provision in the ground lease, the 50-year-old ground lease. So they are turning the building over, and this has been known for years, again.
Who's they?
It's Crown and Shield, LLC or P,
Okay.
which is a company that was, formed to take this vacant, elementary school. I forget which elementary school opened up back then, but maybe.
But they're the leaseholder, they have to turn it over to the
Yeah,
town by
yeah.
2027.
And so they got the building for nothing.
Right.
And then the obligation to build it out for, 20, for senior
Right, I
apartments, but not affordable housing. So it's not it's not part of our SHA.
Right.
But the rents that are being paid are like half of market rate right
Okay.
now. And so they have the obligation to turn the building over, and the town wants to take it back in, but they don't have the obligation to turn it in tenant free. So as I understand it, but I'm just, don't take my word for it. As I understand it, in these executive strategy sessions, and this is as described in public on Tuesday, they decided that the best option for the town, given that there was no consensus in the town that it should continue as a housing of any kind, although it's not off the table. But there are other town entities that are thinking that there are different answers, the right answer.
Non-residential.
Non-residential, right. And again, you can listen to I'm not gonna characterize what those are, but they were characterized at the Tuesday and Wednesday meetings. That the only right thing to do is to have a public process to bring all these all these ideas, and to form the Stephen Palmer Committee to vet them all, and then they are to, their charter is to deliver a report and recommendations, aided by these three very good consulting firms, as far as I can tell. I've heard of them before, and they were very good. They've been working on this year.
Why do they have 3 consultants?
I'm not gonna go there. I don't wanna, it makes sense to me.
It does.
Yes.
After knowing that they're the
Not
nuances.
and they were all procured on RFPs, and the scopes are all out there and everything. It just
Okay.
hasn't been published to anybody in town meeting yet, or anybody else in the town, or even the residents they just learned about this last Thursday themselves, after so I don't want to get into too much detail. All I'm saying is, as I understand it, the select board judgment is that a public process needed to happen, to decide what the next 100 years worth of use of this, Times Square, ground zero property in Needham is. And then, that would be then addressed by the various committees that are involved during the summer, so that by the fall, there would be some decision on that. And then they need 6 months, 9 months to get ready for fall 2027 town meeting, because that whatever it is gonna cost money. They concluded as it was recounted on Tuesday, and I think it was very genuine, that this was grossly unfair to the tenants that are there, and the town would pony up the money to have a relocation process, again, not dissimilar that what we do, except ours is temporary with the right to return, and financial assistance to the tenants, all funded by the town meeting, for them to find new places to live by October 31st, 2026. It's not fair to keep them in limbo for 2 years or 3 years while the town do it. By the way, 2 years is the quickest anybody could talk about doing, because it took 10 years or 15 years to figure out what to do with the senior center, again, I think their argument is that what they're recommending, even though it's very unorthodox, is the right thing to do. It's the morally right thing to do. But I'm not gonna make that case, because I don't know if it is or not, other than what was said. And I have no reason to disbelieve it either. But there's a lot of information that's missing right now, so. I put it on the agenda because we can't really talk about anything on the agenda unless it's on the agenda. But I'm actually doing it for two specific reasons. One is to say, I don't think there's anything to talk about yet, number one. And then I think everybody already knows this, but I want to just repeat it in public, which is what I already said once already, which is anything from, we have a fiduciary responsibility to act in the best interest of the Needham Housing Authority. And some of us are town meeting members, so we also have a fiduciary interest that may or may not overlap to do the right thing as a town meeting member. So that's an interesting position to be in. I've never been in before. But I don't know what the right thing is to do either for the housing authority or as a town meeting member. And I just want to hear what people have to say. You know, obviously a lot of thought has been put into things, and there's no reason that everybody was very sincere in the last couple of meetings. But just a reminder to the board that having seen this crop up from time to time, I believe this is one of those things where friends, neighbors, fellow town meeting members are going to say, hey, so what does the Needham Housing Authority really think about this? Or even Peter O'Neill, the Needham Observer, and all of us need to say, we don't know. And even if we had some idea of what we think about it, you know, it's not something either any of us, including the chair, can express until all of us meet in public and discuss what that position is, and then vote at least by majority. But I think we need to do consent, you know, unanimous on whatever that position is. But I don't know what it is. And to resist the temptation to, be tempted into saying something that about whether what's happening with the Stephen Palmer strategy is a good idea or a bad idea from the point of view of the housing authority, and whether it would, whether we support it or we don't support it, or we support it conditionally. We just don't know yet. And by the way, I'm not sure whether it will get a majority vote on Monday from town meeting, because nobody knows anything right now. So that's sort of the first thing I think the shoe that needs to drop before it even becomes something for us to take a position in here. So, and we
Well,
obviously.
I'd like to throw 2 cents in there.
Yeah, I'm going to ask for comments. Go ahead, Janice, you go first.
I think it's disgusting that they're throwing the residents out just for the
No,
fact.
listen, Janice, this
Just
is what
for the,
I'm.
no, just for the fact, can I finish?
I'm just saying you have a fiduciary responsibility not to take a
Yes,
position.
I know about the
even as an
lease, but the
individual.
lease isn't up yet. But I just think it's disgusting that they're throwing residents out when they have no plans for the building.
So
But why should they have to leave?
Janice, even as an individual, as a commissioner, you have a fiduciary duty not to express your individual position like you just did.
Well, I'm speaking for the residents.
Yeah, I know, but I'm sorry. I'm just telling you that you're getting yourself in trouble.
Reg, I'm confused as to what you're asking us, because,
I wanted to give Janice an opportunity to do what.
no, but I'm confused as to what you're asking each of the individual commissioners. If you don't want our opinion, why did you bring up the topic?
Because I wanted to remind you of the fiduciary duty not take a position on behalf, or even hint that it's on behalf of the housing authority. It might be good for the housing authority. And that's what I'm gonna do.
Wait, say that again?
So if I'm asked, as I've already have been today,
Right,
I'm gonna say, I don't know what I think of what's being proposed.
okay,
I'm gonna say, I'm waiting to hear a lot of information that obviously needs to come forward. And then I'll figure out what my opinion is, obviously as a town meeting member by Monday. But as a housing authority commissioner, I only do that in conjunction with my other 4 fellow commissioners here. And we are obligated to do that in this situation. I think in public, I don't think there's any basis for us to take an executive position, exception, position, and try to discuss it in private. So that's.
So may I continue?
It's your You have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you, Jeff. But no, I do think it's disgusting. And my opinion is if they have no plans for the building, there's nothing on the table unless they're in executive session to something we didn't know about. Like we didn't know about this situation. You know, why are they asking them to leave without any place to go? And I'm gonna elaborate further down on the agenda when we get to the closing of the list. So there.
Okay, so, okay, thanks. And we just don't know why they're doing this. It's very unorthodox to say the least. Any other comments, or did I answer your question, Jeff, here?
Not exactly. I mean, I won't say anything because I don't know what well, I mean, I was saying we wanna bring this up, but we don't know what's being proposed, so we can't comment on it. And
Well-
if that's our position, I can endorse that.
Yeah,
But if you're asking me as somebody that has experience in housing development and these kinds of things, I'll refrain from providing my thoughts on it because it doesn't sound like that's what you're looking for.
yeah, no, not tonight. It'll definitely be on the agenda next month, for sure, you know, but, right now, what is not known is about 95%. And what is known is less than 5% here, so, and, you know, we have the Needham Observer story. This morning that, you know, was the first time I think most people who follow things closely in town. Like just out of the blue, this thing landed in the front, you know, above the fold, as they said, it's story here. So, okay,
Can I
yeah,
just make a comment? I don't know if I need to say this for the record or not, but when I do or don't speak at town meeting, it's not as a representative for the housing.
yeah, no, I
So
think you
there's-
say it.
Right, so whatever is said or not said about this subject
Yeah.
is as me as a town meeting member and not the housing authority.
And I think
And
that-
so I don't want to confuse the two, because my responsibility as a town meeting member and a town resident, there's no matter before the housing authority that I need to
Right.
consider. If there was, this would be a different conversation where I would be talking to town council about trying to understand conflict of interest and recusal and all of that. There is not, and so, again, there will, my representation at town meeting and in leading up to it is as a representative town meeting and not as the commissioner of the housing.
And I think
authority.
all four of us, just to be honest and upfront with everyone, we're all four town meeting members, right?
I'm not.
You're not, okay, three of the four of us are town meeting members. So, yeah, and.
Same, well put.
And
Yeah,
Farrell,
and,
no, you're-
My precinct is very competitive.
no, and I'm just gonna be upfront.
So,
I'm,
can we, I'm sorry, are we gonna have to clarify if we're speaking as a town meeting member or a commissioner from now on?
no, but here's where it goes to people who are not town meeting members. Any article that comes up on town meeting, voters, residents of the town are invited to comment by the moderator. So you can get up at the time meeting, and so can Jeff, and as a resident voter. When it's article number 5, by the way, if you want to look it up. And 6, and say what you want to say as an individual resident. We need to hold off on, and make it clear, as Amanda just did, that, I'm speaking as the town meeting member or the resident, not as a commissioner. And I don't know what our position is gonna be, to be honest with you. Monday, the 20th, at 7:30 PM is town meeting. Yeah, town hall. I thought a lot about this in the last 48 hours, and that's all the time I've had to think about it, but I've asked for advice myself. And because I'm the chair, I'm just gonna recuse myself as saying anything one way or the other, because I've been so centrally identified with the housing authority in the last 5 years. I don't think my lone voice is gonna count for much of anything anyway, but I just think
So Reg,
it's.
just for clarification, me speaking as a resident opposed to as a commissioner? Do I have to differentiate?
It would be useful to, when you, if you've plan to speak at town meeting, but you seek your own advice on this. I think you say, you start off by saying, I'm so-and-so from precinct D. And for the record, I'm a Needham Housing Authority Commissioner, but I speak as a voter and a resident, not as a commissioner, before you say whatever it is you want to say.
Okay,
And I think,
Respectfully, and this is my personal opinion, trying to communicate your thoughts at town meeting when you're not town meeting member sucks.
yeah.
I went to two, I was heavily involved in the MBTA discussion. I went to 2 town meetings, I waited for 2 hours, I was on the list, I was never recognized. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. So respectfully to town meeting members, you're more power to you and you will be recognized and have the opportunity, but I'm not doing that again. I'm just not, because you're treated as, and I get it, I mean, you can't open it up to but don't invite people and then say, we're not recognizing you, so I'm not going through that again.
Yeah. And again, you know, if asked, which I would not be surprised on Monday, you know, when I'm there, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna just not comment right now. Even if we have a boatload more information, because of my role I've been playing for the last 5 years with the PRI here, I just think that's the right thing to do. And that's why I wanted to be us to have we can't have this discussion amongst ourselves except in public session.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, and without foot faulting in a big way, actually, on the open meeting law. So I wanted to have this discussion now. And thank you, Janice. I'm gonna move on to a little bit better news. I believe it's better news, and then we're gonna go to resident input, so everybody get ready. And hopefully it's not too much, because somehow an hour and a half has already gone by here. The lawsuit that was filed against us by one of our residents trying to halt or change the Linden Street, Linden Terrace project, and it was filed against us and the town. The judge did rule summarily from the bench that you know, to basically throw it out. It did not provide much reason, just said, I'm doing it. There's a 30-day appeal period where the litigant can appeal to the Supreme Court to overturn the Superior Court, 30 days, and that appeal period, I think, is over today. So I think that's an
Extension.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask for a comment. Hang on, we're going to resident input anyway. And I'm just saying to the board, on information and belief, as I think they say from our council, no such appeal rights have been exercised. And if that is the case, then we move into the next, we put it in a rear view mirror, but we probably spend it, what, $40,000 to $50,000 in legal fees, would you say, to defend us against that lawsuit here. And now we're going to move into trying to get paid for those $40,000 to $50,000 legal fees. We have 3 possible sources of that, because that otherwise is money that just comes out of our very thin working capital, you know, that we don't have. You know, we're not a generously funded developer like all of Jeff's companies here, and sorry, I couldn't resist. And so fortunately we did have insurance that covered us, covered the board for this sort of thing. The insurance company has been notified a year and plus ago that this is going on, and now we go move into the sort of claims process with them, and we'll see how that goes. Theoretically, we can also seek reimbursement from the ARPA funds the $300,000 we think we have left over, all of a sudden it becomes $250,000 left over.
Right,
You know, that then is the reason I brought up the point of what if we fall short? You know, where does the money come from to finish the 100% CDs? It might be, you know, to pay these legal fees, for being successful. And the third source, we've already tried and been shot down, which is the, what's left of the $1.25 million of CPA funding grant. And when we tried the first time, town council ruled that it wasn't an eligible expense for reimbursement by CPA funds. And we disagreed with that opinion, but we mutually decided, the town and us, there's no point fighting over it until we find out whether, you know, what the disposition of the suit was, which was, we were expecting, you know, from August and September. And then to find out what could be covered by insurance. I think everybody would prefer that insurance covers as much as they cover, but there's some deductibles on that, and there's other conditions of the insurance
have we
policy.
been in touch with the insurer?
Yeah, yes, we have.
Are they gonna cover it?
Well, it is covered. So they
So
said,
what's the deductible?
so it's not the issue of deductible. They negotiate attorney fees, so they won't pay full boat on what the attorney fees, they only pay part of it, but we've appealed that, saying, no, you have to pay the full boat on. I don't have the information as to what, I will next month, what got submitted.
But realistically, you're confident that at least some of the 50,000 could be, including the deductible, could be 20 gets covered, could be
Yes.
35, could be
Yeah.
something less than.
And then we fall back to the ARPA funds, the
Right.
300,000, and then, you know, third fallback is to the CPA, but the second and third fallback basically rob us of money to
Yeah,
go
that
forward
we
with the
could use for
project,
other
yeah,
things.
yeah, so. We wanna see if we can get the max covered by insurance, but it's Byzantine on the coverage, and there's all this fine print in the
Sure.
insurance it's not just what the deductible is, but it's how they interpret the other provisions of the insurance contract with this situation, so that's the update there. We are done with PRI, unless there's any other commissioner comments here. All right, back to the beginning of the agenda, everybody. Resident input, everybody. I know, I'm just saying, I'm sorry it took so long and we delayed everything here, but, here we are. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, Reg, I would like to address the decision. I never received a copy until it went over to the Norfolk Superior Court today.
I'm just gonna put your 3-minute timer on here, Jim, so
It's
just,
disrespectful.
no, I'm not, I'm just letting you know.
I think
Yeah,
I'm speaking as an individual.
yeah, there you go.
And you're saying words that are true in my book.
Okay,
How I found out about this situation, we had a meeting with Cheryl last Thursday,
okay,
and Cheryl told me the case was dismissed. And I said to her, I have not heard anything. With the holiday coming up, I waited until today, and I found out that it was on the docket. They have a docket sheet. But the woman who does my typing has not received it.
yeah,
So that still is in the law.
okay. I would speak to your attorney about that, and I've spoken to our attorney, it gave me the information I reported. Anything else, you want to comment on?
Yes.
Yeah,
I want to thank you, number one. From the lawsuit, I found out about the asbestos condition. And that Needham Housing Authority did a study. The study was enlightening. And a question, 2 questions.
Mhm.
You have estimated over $800,000, according to the author, to clear the asbestos situation. I want to know, you folks have sat on this study for 2 years,
Mhm.
and not one word has been said to the tenants.
Mhm.
Do you realize the seriousness of asbestos?
Yes,
It causes mesothelioma.
yep.
It's cancer causing. And my question is, what have you been doing about it, if anything? You
So,
don't have to answer tonight, but I would like to have it on an agenda, and I would like every tenant notified of this agenda meeting. You're dealing with our lives. It's serious.
Mhm.
And I asked Cheryl, when do you expect to get the $800,000?
Mhm.
Oh, this will come from the grant.
Mhm.
What I would like to see is the previous applications that you have made, and there's been a series of them. Has asbestos been mentioned once?
Mhm.
Has the cost of removal been mentioned once?
So you absolutely should work, and especially as a member of the,
Because an individual, as a resident. And I question when the court says I don't have standing. Their decision and your decision has affected my life.
Mhm.
And just because I'm not a property owner or a butter. My time is up, I'll be finishing. Just because I'm not a property owner or a butter. My heart says I have standing, and I am glad that I filed suit.
Mhm.
Because I had sleepless nights of how you folks could decide that a shall be an 18-foot fire lane reduced to 5 feet, and the chief was
Sorry.
supposed to show up. and
you,
make-
so let me,
Let me just finish,
you already made that point in the last couple of meetings, so
let's not re-emphasize it, Rich.
I got it. I'm just
We're
mindful of
talking
the
to
hours.
new members on the board, right?
You can talk to them afterwards, but I would,
I'd like
let
to
me
talk to them now and take it on the
Jim,
record.
Jim.
You won't shut up until I finish.
Reg, hold on, let me, I'm not clear, what are you, is the point you're making about the lawsuit, or is the point you're making about the asbestos?
It's a combination of both.
I would like not to have a discussion, right now unless the board wants to, overrule me here. I would like to make a brief comment that I think you'll find okay, all right? I have no problem putting it on the agenda next month, okay? And you can, as a resident or as a member of the resident board, whichever way, any one of your, standings, okay?
Yes,
I'm fine with doing that, and you just work with Cheryl to get it on the agenda next time. And we can spend some time on this, okay?
fine.
Okay? I wasn't trying to shut you down, I'm just looking, behind you is the clock, 13 minutes.
Nice to you,
Yeah.
you be patient with that.
Yeah, I've given you, twice or 3 months amount of time, so go ahead, who else has some resident comment? Go ahead.
I want the construction people to be aware of this, and if they might already know about it, but. It's another alternative to spending tons and tons of money for wood, regular wood. It's a fairly new process that's had come out that's using real wood. But they make it more sustainable, more durable, stronger and lighter than wood. And it's made here in this country. It's been enhanced with safe, sustainable, chemicals and things that they
Particle
use.
board.
And so it's another alternative, and it's also bulletproof.
Mhm.
And it's good, it's used, in the beginning, they were using it for high-end
Mhm.
places. And, the interiors and for the building facades. But now they've gone out to beams and columns and things like that. By the time this thing gets built, that might be some kind of a nice savings to get into. When we're talking about shortages and tariffs and the demand for regular wood, people who are building homes, for example, using stick-built. Stronger than steel, this product. It's called superwood or invent wood, if you want to Google it. But I just think it would be a wonderful way to have longevity in the building, to have the newest thing that's proven to be, worthy of a place that you care about, people are gonna live there for however many years it's gonna be. And the second part of my question is, with the 20-year lease that we now have in Linden, we went from 99 years to 20, I believe. With the switching over thing process, correct?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, but go ahead.
Lease on the land, because Linden Chambers normally it's like 99 years or something.
So we own the land.
Now, yes.
We're not leasing it. We own it
Why should
outright.
we rephrase that? It's probably, I'm looking at.
But go ahead and make your point and I'll help you with
It's
it.
gonna be a 20-year term. What guarantee will we have after that 20 years is up? That's not, in other words, we've discussed this once before. I discussed it with, I think, the committee when I was on. And it was, after that lease comes to a head, I'll probably be dead by then, but what guarantee is it gonna be staying in the genre of the elderly, disabled,
all the other.
population is A of the question. And B is the people that live there now, they, from my understanding of the contract, it's, we have the right to return. Which I think I've discussed with Cheryl at a meeting or two.
Right.
And will that change after we are relocated? Like there's been a conundrum earlier today that we're talking about. Will this be a change for us in Needham Public Housing?
So, let me take the three questions and your time is up, but I think they're good answers for all three of the questions. The first one is, will we be using, next generation wood products, for construction at Linden, and I'll just extend that to seabeds as well. And then the answer is yes, absolutely. The architects have that on the radar screen, whatever makes sense. The second question, I think you're asking about the tax credit recovery period, it's 15 years. So we basically ground lease the land out, and they build Linden Phase 1A and 1B. And what happens when that, the investors that give us the money for the tax credits need a guaranteed period, which is not longer than 15 years. To get, take all the benefits over the years. You can't take the tax credit all in 1 year. It has to be spread out over, and we have an ironclad, legally reviewed, right to take the property, the ground lease back, to determine the ground and take the leasehold improvements, which are the brand new 136-year unit building, back into the Needham Housing Authority. And unless in the future, beyond, we're not all, don't think I'm gonna be around then myself, but the future board has the future right of refusal for a very, very good deal, like for $100,000, we can take back this $80 million building. And we own it outright, we can run it, continue to run. So if the Needham Housing Authority still has the same mission as we do today, that legally, that's what we do, is affordable housing. Now that mission can change, maybe all us old folk will die off and it'll be nothing but, millennials and Gen Z people who can't afford to live that place, can't find a place to afford. Who knows what 15 years is gonna be, but it must be affordable housing unless our mission changes.
Go beyond the 60%.
Unless something changes between now and 40 years from now.
I know that.
Yeah. So, all right. And your third question was, what reminds me? Yeah. No, I think we're good.
Good, thank you.
We have the right to return.
Yes, that doesn't go away. So you have the right to return. The people who are temporarily relocated to do Phase 1A have a right to return to a new 1-bedroom apartment in the building that's constructed.
That doesn't change after relocation, even if we transition from state to federal.
Yes, it's even, we will be transitioning and yes, you have a right, anybody who's displaced in Linden Street Phase 1A has a right to return to a new apartment in the, redeveloped building. Okay. Any other, Marlene, you had something here?
Yes, I mean, it's a daunting for 3 minutes because there's so many issues. One point I want to make about the lawsuit, which I don't know if anyone else knows, and I'll have to email Amanda, because she had to leave, but the reason why that was given, but all they had to do was move the fire lane. Or move the building 13 feet, either forward or backward, to allow for the proper 15, whatever it was, 18 feet for the state law. That they must, for safety, for the state law, have 18 feet. And then they said we only have 5. The reason why they didn't wanna push the building forward to accommodate the fire lane for the 13 feet was because they planned to build more apartments. Now, those apartments are not necessarily gonna be affordable, it could be market rate, it could be affordable, I don't know. But the reason why they were reserving that 13 feet, because you could have resolved the lawsuit, say $50,000, and just say, okay, we'll move the building 13 feet, we'll have a real fire lane, because do you have a fiduciary responsibility to the tenants? I know you have a fiduciary responsibility to Needham Housing Authority, which means the people that either work for or control the Needham Housing Authority. Can you answer, do you have a fiduciary responsibility to the tenants? Because if you do, you have been violating it with the asbestos especially, and also this fire lane. So the reason why is simply because, not because they want to build 136 units. They are looking into the future. And they want to build more apartments, so our safety is being compromised for profit to see if you can get more buildings. The other thing is with the asbestos, 4 chambers, which is not gonna be torn down for quite a while. $975,000 to encapsulate it. They have the apartment numbers, okay? They have the apartment numbers of people living in both Linden and Chambers that have been breathing in this asbestos in deteriorating conditions. Proven by this report, and the laundry rooms, which everyone uses, and the individual apartments in walls and floors. Proven in, I believe it was June 2023, and now it's 2.5 years approximately. None of the tenants have been notified, and we have met with Cheryl.
Can I ask you a
We met
question?
with Cheryl, and we met with Cheryl, and she said,
Will you
I
give
don't
me
know if any encapsulation.
10 seconds to
has
ask
been
you a
done."
question.
Sure.
Are you okay with what I said to Jim, which is we'll put it on the agenda next time?
Very glad we are, but I
Okay.
just wanna make you aware.
Let me just, then 5 more seconds. There are answers to all your questions. And I want to make sure the experts are there and that you're okay. Okay,
Yeah, because
with the
we-
answers. No, I'm not today. I understand the concern. Are you okay with my, Jim's suggestion to put it on?
75,000.
Do you mind if we put it on can we put it on the agenda next time? Because it's not on the agenda this time, and more than just you folks might be interested in attending.
We're only gonna have.
Are you okay with putting, no, it won't be on the agenda for 3 minutes, it'll be an agenda item where we can expend whatever time is necessary on this item, okay?
I
No,
just wanted to make sure all the board members,
You
other
got
board
it.
members were aware of
I,
it.
I,
The report, did they read the report?
Yeah.
That we're lit, so they knew the 2.5 years.
are you okay with the suggestion we do the agenda, robust agenda item next month, okay? Great,
Yes.
and.
Yeah.
No, I'm not, I did not laugh talk to me. I did not laugh at you. I'm taking you seriously, okay? Can you talk to me? I'm taking you seriously. Can you accept that?
Yes.
Okay.
Glad that it's.
And then we'll put in the agenda, and we'll have the right experts there, and maybe you can submit questions in advance, that would be helpful, so we can focus it.
All right.
And then
How to submit the questions?
yeah, we'll follow up, don't worry, it can be in any format, and then, I think what we'll also do is, I think that we haven't talked about the general topic of asbestos for a few years, but it did come up a few years ago, before your time, Marlene. And same concerns, I absolutely legitimate to be concerned about it, in my opinion, and I want to expand the agenda item with the board. To make it not just asbestos at Linden Chambers, but also here in Seabeds and Cook and at High Rocket Homes, and also to cover not just asbestos, but lead paint is the other big one as well. So I'm building on your good suggestion,
What about?
but not for tonight.
the pipes, the lead in the pipes.
We can, we can do that, yes, too, yeah, no
Because
problem.
we know it's there, whether you have to
No,
report it.
it's it could be lead in the town drinking water, anything that's a,
No,
yeah.
I mean specifically
Right.
for the pipes.
Send your suggestions in.
Not
I'm moving
the
on.
ones.
Is there any more new agenda?
Yeah.
Ross, Donald, I'm recognizing you here. Go ahead.
Rich, quick comment. You noticed that I read only concerned Linden and Chambers. If there are other studies on seabeds, I'd love to have the.
We'll address them all because, just having it on Linden Chambers is gonna make other residents and other parts of us ask the same question. So we might as well deal with them all at the same time. All right, Ross,
They
go
have
ahead.
reports to
Yes.
refer
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. I do have one. I'll be brief. I got a couple of points here. I'm concerned there are procedures in that are supposed to be used in preparation for the board meeting. Is there a camera on? All right, well, never mind.
Yeah, but
All right, yeah, thank you. Oh, good. And it starts, as I recall, 10 days before the meeting when the chair and the executive director take suggestions from the board and develop an agenda. And as I understand it, the um, Tenants Association is in the rules for participation. We're supposed to be getting notifications simultaneously when the board members, discuss and develop the agenda. So I'd just like I only got the paperwork and the email yesterday. So, I don't know. It's
Your
not enough
comment
time.
is- Your
Pardon
comment
me?
is noted, in the interest of time. Do you have anything else to say?
Yes,
We have a couple of hands up. I can't see who they are.
just briefly, you're going to be discussing the common area policy on the agenda, and it includes the Harmony guidelines. And it's been declared a couple of times by the executive director that this is an approved housing authority policy. I don't believe it is approved. It was first presented in July on the meeting of July 18th. And it was presented and I don't think there was a vote or a discussion or anything. Anyway, so I don't think it's a fully accepted policy. Plus, it's under discussion tonight. Um, so,
Anything
so there's been some confusion about what the executive director has been claiming about how this authority's been approved. In any case, I'd like this issue to be brought before the Residents Advisory Board, since it involves the residents. I mean, it sort of makes sense.
Anything else? Rob?
Linden Chambers.
Excuse me, Marlene, no, you're not recognized.
Yeah.
Anything
And,
else?
Yeah, I'd like if well, also I'd like some clarification. I don't know whether the chair has thought about this. What is the meaning of the rule that allows the president to be heard on matters on the agenda? I don't know what that means. It sounded like from the last meeting that I could be heard, but only in writing. Well,
All right.
that's not hearing, it's reading
Any-
maybe. But so I'd like
anything
some
else?
clarification on that if I'm going to be allowed to speak on the agenda item on common areas and harmony guidelines when it comes up. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. And any other resident comment? I'm gonna I'm sorry I'm pushing this along. Because I don't want it to be 8 o'clock on that clock that I'm looking at right now, and we've got some other things to do. More routine. Anybody else?
No more hands.
No more hands up. Okay, great. So, unless you have some comment on any of those comments, I would like to move along here.
Well, I
Because
do
I don't
have to
wanna-
say publicly,
Yeah.
that I'm sorry for the outbursts from our residents. We had a meeting in my office and we talked about how things are discussed at meetings. And that it is a business meeting and that these kinds of issues that they raise, that we would vet it out at their meetings with us.
Mm.
We would talk about what we needed to bring about, to bring answers about the report. So we did talk about that in depth.
Yeah.
So I'm a little thrown off by
the comments that were made, because it seems like everything that we talked about, it went in a different direction, so I apologize.
Well, no apologies. I just, we're trying to move to the end, get us to
But I just
adjournment
wanted
here.
to say that for the record.
Yeah, good. And I think it's good that we started up the resident advisory board. Excuse me.
No, we don't have a resident.
Well, and then I think, the more you can do,
Yeah.
not at the meeting, the better to position real issues for the board. So,
That's a real issue.
yeah, and let's move on. Whew. I'm gonna ask now for the executive director to say what is actually absolutely essential for us to approve tonight and what maybe could be deferred to next month and the world did not come to an end.
Great, we do not have the certificate of final completion, which is under new business.
Well, let's just go through the agenda. I assume we have to do the
We
warrant.
don't complete that tonight?
No, let's do, I'm sorry, let me ask it more clear. What do we need? Do we need to do, we need to approve the check warrant, okay? It's consent agenda and, what else must we do tonight?
That's it.
Those two, and with the, policies can wait until next month for us to,
If you like to, that's fine.
how does the board feel about that? And especially since we got some resident comment that said on the policies here, so. All right,
I was wondering about the waiting list,
I'm sorry, go ahead and say again there, Janice.
the waiting list.
Okay, what do you think, should we?
If you want to
It's
discuss
the
that,
will of the commissioners that are here. Amanda already had to leave, so whatever discussion we have, she won't be able to participate in.
right, and she had questions about it.
And she did have
Quite
questions.
honestly, we'd like to wait for her.
Is there anything immediately is gonna happen on that?
No.
Okay, so Janice, are you okay if we deal with that next meeting?
I think we should, I actually think we should get a special meeting going for that.
Okay, we could possibly add it to the 3 o'clock meeting
Yeah.
that we've scheduled, if you like, if that's the will of the commissioners.
Yeah,
And just,
Yeah. 'Cause
reminder.
that's an issue right now.
All right, so we have now a 2 agenda item meeting that's on the, whatever it is, Wednesday at 3 o'clock, the 29th.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that, Janice, and for new commissioners, I just want to remind everybody that any 2 commissioners can request a special meeting be scheduled on any topic. That's why I always look for actually consensus on doing that, but that's what our bylaws say.
Okay, you backing me up on that, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. No,
Thank
no, it doesn't have to, we can do it by consensus, we
Yeah.
can do it,
Yeah.
but I just
We
wanted,
support that.
they have a right to do that.
Yeah.
Marlene, please, no running, Marlene, excuse me, you not recognize. No, it's an open public meeting that be,
Where is it gonna be held?
it's not scheduled yet, Marlene. If you will be, it's tentatively scheduled there, okay? All
Thank
right.
you.
Moving on, all right, everybody, okay, who's hungry for dinner? Right, yeah, I'm, Marlene, Marlene, Marley,
word, but we don't have any money from the lawsuit.
Marley.
Yeah.
Marley. Beth, please,
Insurance money.
please, no sidebar conversation. I roll for I'm gonna bring my gavel next time. I have one, I haven't needed it until, I think we start bringing it here, bang the gavel here. I make a motion that we're on A1 NHA bill schedule check warrant. I'm gonna make a motion that we approve that bill schedule check warrant of $620,647.85. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions from the commissioners? Hearing none, I'm gonna call a vote. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Jeff Engler votes aye.
And that passes 4-0 with 1 absence. And we have to, for our new super minute taker, that you have to list out the actual vote, who's voted by name. You can't just put the 4-0 one. So it has to be us 4 voting for it by name, and Amanda is absent. Okay, Cheryl will explain it to you afterwards. Okay, I now make a motion, A2, to approve the High Rock Homes LLC bill schedule check warrant, $28,490.05. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions from the commissioners? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Jeff Engler votes aye.
Okay, and Amanda is absent, so that's 4-0, and with one absence. Now I'm going to the consent agenda. You folks received the minutes yesterday or the day before, so you certainly can say I want to wait.
No, I haven't read them.
But just reminding everybody of that. Our goal is to get everything out on the Fridays before, but you know, then there's reality. And it was a holiday weekend. That doesn't help anything either. So I am gonna make a motion that we accept all these reports on the consent agenda, which are the NHA and HR High Rock Homes regular monthly meeting minutes of 9/18/2025, the monthly accounting report, unaudited accounting report from our fee accountants, the NHA monthly vacancy and work order report, the NHA tenants of accounts receivable report, and the NHA tenants, two of them, two different reports on accounts receivable and aging. I make a motion, we approve that, the second from Janice, hearing no further discussion. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Jeff Engler votes aye.
And it passes unanimously 4-0 with one absence here. I'm gonna, I think there's no other business we need to do tonight, is that right, Madam Executive Director? I want to just call people's attention to the calendar coming up through the end of the year. There's an extra meeting there, not counting the special meeting we just talked about earlier. And that is the December 11th, 2025 meeting, and it's our custom to do an extra meeting in December, because we'll have both the final recommended budget for the state, our state properties, and then also our federal properties. We'll have attendance from our fee accountant, plays huge role in preparing those budgets and making sure we're covered for the next year. Will be helping us, Cheryl present it, and you know, it'll be a recommendation from the executive director that we those budgets, and we have a very strictly and you know, regarded and enforced and noticed deadline of getting those budget approvals in before the end of the year to both the state and federal side. Otherwise, we get dinged for not being a good housing authority. So that's again Thursday, December 11th at 5 p.m. With that, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Well,
Hearing no objection, Reg Foster votes aye.
Flanagan votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Jeff Engler votes aye.
And we are adjourned, and we can stop the recording, and you won't starve to death here. So have a nice evening.